Hello, everybody. Welcome to another rundown of the Extreme Indoor League of Football. This is to cover the Week 11 to Week 12 setup for the league. I'm the one of the co-owners, rather, of the Chattanooga Jumbo One, MrLeedles. My usual co-host, RFB for Roll Fizz, is a bit under the weather today, so he's not going to be able to join me as we are here to discuss Week 11 from last week's start, how everything's kind of shaped up. Obviously, when we were here last week, we were talking about Victoria's upset win, Horsington's win over Hornipolis. But for now, we have a few more games to talk about, as well as some very interesting playoff picture standings, if I can add to that. So, wanted to start off just with Week 11's other streamed games: Orlando Oranges and Pittsburgh Solid Fries. For a Pittsburgh game, this was actually pretty close. Pittsburgh didn't really mess anything up. It was honestly Orlando that was doing a lot more of the mess ups. However, Pittsburgh just weren't scoring enough. I think they were down pretty much the entire game or close to it by at least a touchdown, if not a field goal. They just couldn't keep up with Orlando, which is a weird thing to think, but is definitely something that is not surprising. Orlando is a solid team, just in a very tough division. So, for the time being, this is definitely a big loss for Pittsburgh, just based on how they have been running this season, how they are so close to elimination, because now, if you think about it, they only have week 12 through 18. Of course, they have a bye week within there. So, total of 6 games. The best they can do right now is hope for a wild card, because they would have to tie with Memphis, which I don't see happening. They're not out, but it's very close. As for Orlando, this helps them a ton. This helps their season stay alive by quite a bit, as they now are at 5-5 with a good shot at a wild card spot, depending how American South goes. Theoretically, if American East has either Horsington or Massillon fall apart, Orlando could be looking at a wild card spot if it ends up being 3 American East teams and 1 American South team. Otherwise, they're really the main team on the outside looking in right now. And as far as the other stream game goes, the Tank Bowl of the week, the Midwest Tank Bowl, Rosemont in New England. Rosemont, they didn't even play. It didn't even seem like they played football. They, for all intents and purposes, are winning the Tank Bowl. It's just, they're that bad. And the sad thing is, I don't see it getting better. They don't even have, they have their QB's out for 3 weeks. He got hurt in the game. Their wide receiver is probable, so he may be in for week 12. At latest, he'll be there week 13. It's too late. It is too late for them to even think about coming back. At 2-8, they'd have to win out, essentially, to even make playoffs, just based on how National West it goes. Or at the very least, they'd have to win enough to be second place in division and be better than the top 3 teams, or at least the bottom two. Well, how do I put it? They have to be not as good as the top team of the West, but better than the next 2 to make playoffs. So again, it's unlikely, but it's not a great season for them, or New England for that matter. I think both teams kind of got unlucky. New England lost their QB immediately, so you can't really call this just, oh, New England was bad. This was New England had a QB that they lost immediately, and their kicker can't do everything. He did a lot in their game, and their backup quarterback did a lot, surprisingly enough, but they can't do everything. And it was been pretty obvious throughout this season. This is just a lost season for New England. The worst part is I don't even think they may make Tank Bowl, just because of how Tampa Bay and how Pittsburgh have played. Those 2 teams are very good at losing. So Rosemont, I think, is a lock. New England may not even make it because Portland is also there. So with it being one from the National Conference, one from American Conference, I'm predicting you're going to look at Rosemont for sure. Maybe New England or Portland. Those three teams all have a shot at making it. Victoria, if they start slipping again, have a shot at making it. Otherwise, it's almost a lock that it's Rosemont versus either Tampa Bay or Pittsburgh Salad Fries. Maybe the Eagles or the Waywards, depending on how the season goes. Going into non-streamed games, Akihabara got a big win over Santa Clara, puts them right in the middle of the division, thanks to what happened on week 12. And Santa Clara, again, it's another team on the outside looking in. They're a bit further away from where Orlando is, whereas Orlando needs really 2-3 wins to establish themselves. Santa Clara is looking at a point where they may have to start just rattling off games to even get a chance. And Santa Clara is another team that it's like they're not bad. For what they are, Santa Clara is not bad. The thing that killed them was they don't have a quarterback. Getting a kicker was a smart thing. Getting a running back, not so much. Because while the run game is important compared to passing game, that's what's going to kill them, is the fact that they don't have a star quarterback to be helping them. Even if they had a wide receiver, like Florida City, I mean, technically cornerback DeBar Newcar. Or sorry, that would be hell with DeBar Newcar. But still, that team's in playoff picture because they have a good quarterback and a solid wide receiving / defensive threat. Whereas Santa Clara don't have that. They have a kicker, which again is great, but not great enough. So if I'm Santa Clara, I'm looking at the rest of these games as a way to just get players some more time. It absolutely sucks to say, but it's the most you could do. Get some players some game time, see what your backups can do, see what anybody can do, and hope for a better season next year if you're still around. Because you know how the XILF goes with their teams, how some will just pack up and move to another stadium, some will just outright disappear. This is just a lost season for Santa Clara. Buffalo, moving on, got a big win in overtime over the Portland Wood Choppy Boys. I'm more worried for Buffalo that they had to go to overtime with Portland than the win. It's a good win. It puts them at a solid number 2 in the American South Division, tied with Burbank. We'll get to them later. But they went to overtime with Portland. Portland has a defensive back and a linebacker. They went defensive. So unless it was their defense showing up in spades finally and bringing the game to OT, compared to a team that, while they also went defensive a little bit, well, not a little bit, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I expected if it went to overtime for Portland to do better because Buffalo's wide receiver is still out for the season. Their QB has done great work, but compared to a double defensive threat, you would have thought it going to overtime meant Portland was going to win. I think Buffalo escaped with a victory, and I do mean escaped, and I think it's not going to be an easy season for them from here on out. They're not going to face many more teams like Portland. At least I don't believe so. So I just don't really see them doing all that. I think they'll, because the American South is interesting. They could still make playoffs. I just don't see them lasting long if they do. The wide receiver being out is going to haunt them. From there, another American South match. Mobile Rumble defeated Chattanooga 38-35. Very close game. Shows both teams have a very strong offense, very strong defense as well in some instances. It was a very important match for Chattanooga. I won't deny that. I wanted them to win. I really needed them to win. It would have made a 4-way tie for first place in the American South, which we'd become National West, but it was an important match, but we do still have a chance. I think Mobile needed that win more than us because they needed to establish themselves as the number 1 team. I can't really fault them for that. They played a good game, but I also think that we're not out yet. Whereas if we were 5-5 and say the American East or the National Midwest, we would basically be out already. Because of the division we're in, we're going to be kept in for a lot longer. We're going to have a much better shot. But big ups to Mobile to keep their division lead. See how long it lasts based on who they play. Considering that I believe once I get to the Week 12 rundown, they have a very important matchup. Well, yeah. Memphis Hazard Pay beat Massillon 37-34. Another important win for Memphis. 9-1. It keeps them in the running for probably the best overall team of the XILF. Technically, half game ahead of Florida City, who play this week. But I definitely think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's going to be a interesting series of weeks from Memphis, as just based on who they're going to play regarding week 12 anyways. They're going to have a weird setup. They'll have a few easy games. They'll probably have another game with at least one, if not two, of their division rivals, perhaps more. And beyond that, it's really going to come down to, as far as Memphis goes, if they can keep this momentum up. A 9-1 record is nothing to scoff at. I will absolutely not doubt that. But they also have a bye week still, and that hopefully won't haunt them. And the key word is hopefully, because if it doesn't, and they just keep going, then they'll keep going and win division. But looking at their record, the team that beat them was Santa Clara. Santa Clara is not that great. And they're not even, like, that wasn't because of injuries for them. That was just a loss. Memphis has nobody out. Obviously, Dennis Gilder, Brad Epic have been a 1-2 combo that's dominated. But to lose to a team without a quarterback is the very difficult thing to see. Because now you're getting to a point where you could be in a tough spot once you face a team like that again. I just don't know how to go with it. To move on from there, the second to last week 11 matchup. Sioux Falls Numpties defeated Topeka Mockingbirds 52-30. I think Topeka needed this win, and the fact that they didn't get it hurts a lot, not only to them, but for the entire division. Topeka's best chance of making playoffs was to win this game and just try to stay in place with the National West. Them losing to Sioux Falls keeps the Numpties alive, but at the cost that we are now getting to a point where the National West could have 3 teams in the playoffs, because Topeka and Sioux Falls could just keep losing bigger games like they've done for most of the season, and it'll end up haunting them to the point where now you have this almost setup in a way that National West can coast into the playoffs solely because the National Midwest has been a, I'm going to be real, dumpster fire of a division. They have been pretty bad. Outside of Florida City men, none of the teams are over .500. You have 3 tank bowl contenders in that division alone. It's just not a good division. But there's still improvement for both teams. Sioux Falls and Topeka are both still in playoff contention, so they could rebound. They could definitely rebound. Considering who they play, you never know. You never know with it. And finally, the Hartford Hangover beat the Hellraisers 31-26. I'm going to get into Hell more with the Week 12 rundown. But for Hartford, this was a big win. They're number 1 in division still. Somehow still number 1, considering that their QB, Lackadoo, is still out for 4 weeks. Which most people would have said is going to cost them their season. We saw him get hurt last year, and it basically cost Hartford their playoffs. But now he's going to come back. Hopefully, he's going to stay healthy, and Hartford could have a great run at the playoffs like they did 2 years ago with him and Jose Elefante, of course, at the special teams helm. But for now, I want to get into week 12. Obviously, 2 matches have already happened. Horny Polis defeated Hellraisers, and this is why I wanted to save the talk about Hell for after this game. The Razors are on a skid. There's no doubt about it. The Razors have lost, at this point, I believe, 3 games in a row. Chattanooga, Hartford, and now Horny Polis. And yes, they beat Horny Polis back in week 9. But that was before the break. Ever since the break has happened, Hell has just not been the same team. They've been rather flat. Charlie Day hasn't been able to perform like he usually does. Or rather, he performs like he usually does, but in the worst way possible. That one end zone play where they could have saved, maybe not saved the game, but could have put some points on the board and made it closer than what it was. And instead, he throws it away when he has a clear shot of the end zone. That's the sign of a quarterback being done. I don't like saying it, but I think Hellraisers just ended their season with that loss. If there's any loss that they look to this season and say losing to them was the worst thing to happen, that may be it. Because you can also make the argument, it's like, oh, losing to Chattanooga twice was a big hurt. But losing to the Patrol when you beat them just 3 weeks earlier, it's got to sting. And hopefully, for Hell, it'll serve as a wake-up call for them to essentially get their heads out of their ass and start playing like they used to play. They have playoffs on the line each and every week because of how strong their division is. And they're just not taking it. They're letting other teams surpass them. They are almost bottom of the division right now because Victoria has been making a surge back. They need to step up their game. They need to just step everything up. And they're not doing it. And with how they've played, I don't see them doing it. I see them as a team that's going to be very fringe on playoffs, and it's going to take one loss, and it's going to knock them out. I'm sorry, Hell, but this season ain't it. Go back to the drawing board and either go into an all-in push for this season or start planning for next year. Don't half-ass either of them. Because if you half-ass either, you're going to keep doing what you're normally doing. Moving on to the other Week 12 match, Horsington versus Mobile. This was a big win for Horsington. This is one that was desperately needed for both divisions in there. If Mobile won this game, they were very close to confirming themselves for American South. A 2-win advantage over every other team, minimum of 2-win advantage, is something not easily overcome. And yes, technically, it'd be like a 1.5 advantage because they played an extra game compared to Burbank, Buffalo, Chattanooga, and Encino. But, come on. Being up 2 games to a division rival this late in the season is a major deterrent towards other teams trying to get into the playoffs. It kills morale. Like, I can assume Burbank and Buffalo thought the same thing, but when I saw Mobile take that loss to Horsington, I was thanking Horsington. I don't care if they end up making playoffs. In fact, I kind of hope Horsington do. They've been a really solid team this season. But it kept all 3 of Burbank, Buffalo, Chattanooga, even Encino, to an extent, in the playoff hunt. And I don't say Tampa Bay, only because Tampa Bay is just, I think they're too far gone. Plus, they have a division. I'll get into that after. But I think Tampa Bay's too far gone, which is why I was saying Burbank, Buffalo, and then Chattanooga and Encino. But Horsington needed that win. Half game back from Massillon. It puts them 2 games back from Memphis, roughly. No, 1.5 games back. So half game of Massillon, 1.5 games of Memphis. They have a good shot. They feasibly can make it. Who knows if they can, but they can. Now, to finish off, just because of no co-host, I can't really talk about the playoff picture that much. It'd be a lot easier to bounce it off, but for me, all I would really be able to do is just run down 1 week of change, which doesn't really do much. Running down the rest of the week, Florida City men playing for the first time since the midseason return of XILF against the Burbank Buzzchins. Important match for both teams. Florida City looking to keep hold of the National Midwest and essentially ensure the elimination of Rosemont, while Burbank's looking to get the #1 slot in American South and get closer to eliminating Tampa Bay, Encino, and potentially Chattanooga. If I had to pick, this is not, and this is going to sound like it, but it's not biased based on division. I just feel Florida City's too good. I think they're going to take the win. It's going to be close. It's going to be a very close match. That is something Burbank's great at doing, is keeping games close. I just don't see them finishing off Florida City. The Buffalo Wild Things Tampa Bay botch. This may be the kill blow for Tampa Bay season. Losing to Buffalo. Buffalo needs this win to get them the #1 slot in division. They beat Tampa. I believe that will put Buffalo at a 2-game win over Tampa, which ensures that tiebreaker. I just don't see it. I see Buffalo getting this win and Tampa Bay look towards the Tank Bowl. You guys are a shoo-in to make it. If Pittsburgh keeps playing like they were playing against Orlando and are facing weaker teams, or able to pull off some crazy upsets, Tampa Bay could make Tank Bowl and play Rosemont, or New England, or Portland, or Victoria, or whoever, and could win said Tank Bowl. I just have that feeling that Tampa Bay's running out of time. Santa Clara, Pittsburgh, another divisional match. Neither team can afford to lose. If Pittsburgh loses here, it all but seals their season, but the same can be said for Santa Clara. I don't know how to call this one. I honestly don't. I could flip a coin right now, and I would argue with myself over whether the coin is correct or incorrect, because both of these teams are just close, but not close enough to anything major. But if I had to pick, I'm going to go Pittsburgh because they have a more potent offense. They have the double wide receiving threat, Mormon Whitecastle, and all the small things, compared to a running back and kicker attack. If Pittsburgh's defense holds, then I feel it's going to be the greatest game for them in terms of keeping playoff hopes alive. But their defense needs to hold. Football Give can kick, that's for sure. So, defense holds, prevents touchdowns, and even with field goals, as long as Pittsburgh can throw the ball to one of those 2 wide receivers and not completely screw it up, they should be able to win. The Massillon Mistakes and Orlando Oranges. This is another divisional match. Massillon looking to secure themselves second place over Horsington. Losing this would make it a tie. While Orlando getting this win puts them only a game back from Horsington and Massillon. And I'm going to actually pick Orlando here. I'm probably jinxing them, but I have a strange feeling Orlando's going to pull off some, I guess, call it Orlando magic. Satsuma's going to perform like he has done and just kick in bunches. And is going to be able to put away Massillon. Victoria's Secret's New England Squatters. almost a pseudo tank bowl, because I wish there was a tank tournament, honestly. I think that would be funny. If the bottom 8 teams all competing in a tank tournament. But New England squatters Victoria. New England does not have much to play for outside of hoping they lose for Tank Bowl. Victoria looking to keep playoff hopes alive, and if they win this, they now make the bottom of National West a tie between them and Hell. I have Victoria winning this. They've been strong coming off the break, and I don't think New England's really playing to win. I think they're playing to tank. Hartford Hangover versus Topeka Mockingbirds. Topeka looking to get a playoff spot. Hartford looking to keep their division title. I'm going to go Topeka. And here's why. Topeka have been a bit weird with how they play. But with the quarterback out, and Topeka having a good QB, although one that doesn't really fit their scheme, plus the defensive tackle Peter Pan being able to perform in bunches, I just have the feeling that it's going to end up being a very tight, but barely a win for Topeka. And 3 more games here, Chattanooga and Encino. I'm absolutely showing bias here. Chattanooga need to win. It secures us a solid 3rd place in division, which, provided the loss of Burbank or Buffalo, gets us a tie for 3rd and gets us 1 step closer to playoffs, depending how American East play. We need this win over Encino, and if we screw it up, I'm not exactly going to give up hope, but I am going to be pretty disappointed in a loss. Memphis Hazard Pay and Rosemont Burst Modes. This should be an absolute squash match. Memphis should destroy Rosemont. Rosemont have both of their star players out. This should be a joke of a game. Memphis should be blowing them out by at least 30 points. And if somehow Rosemont win, I'm going to be more shocked at Memphis failing that hard than Rosemont winning. And that's just how it has to go, because if you lose to Rosemont at this point, you need to either fire some people and let heads roll, or you need to seriously reevaluate your choices. Finally, you have Sioux Falls against Portland. Both these teams are fringe playoff contenders. Portland needs to win a bit more than Sioux Falls do, but regardless, it's going to be another close game. And because of their performance last week, I'm going to give it to Portland. They had a very close game last week to a team that they shouldn't have been close to. So I'm going to give the edge to Portland here. It's a shame for Sioux Falls to take a loss, especially after a big win over Topeka last week. But neither team will really be out of playoffs depending how the National West goes. So with that, that's the rundown of 2020 XILF season. I am, of course, MrLeedles, your host of this, I don't know what to call it. It's a pseudo sports center. So if you guys have any names, leave it in the comment section. And for now, see you all at game time.